Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this, well, it's Open Mic. What is Open Mic? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we do topics on the first half of the show, but in the second half of the show, all we do is take your live questions. Here on the weekends, that's it. We just take your live questions, talking about whatever it is you guys want to talk about on this weekend that you so rightfully deserve to have at your disposal. And I do hope you guys are having a great weekend already. I know I am. I've got some things lined up today that I'm really looking forward to. Going to do a little bit of work on some stuff, yada, 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 all those sorts of things. And I hope you guys are having an absolutely fabulous day too. Hey, just before we jump into the live questions, I want to remind you guys that you guys can also listen to the John Campea Show, the Monday through Friday show, on the podcast feed. You just go to your favorite podcasting app of choice, look for the John Campea Show, subscribe to it for those times that you need your John Campea Show fix, but you can't be in front of your YouTube channel, whether it's because you're at work or you're at the gym or you're in your car, whatever. Make sure you go and subscribe to it now so it's there when you need it. All right, guys. Hey, listen, with all that down, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into it today. And we're going to get things started today here with an anonymous viewer who writes in, "Hey, John, I just had a Mandela effect. Ooh, growing up, the Rob Schneider body swapping movie was just called Hot Chick. But now when you look it up, it's actually called The Hot Chick. Has this ever happened to you?" Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I've always known the Schneider one was The Hot Chick. The one to me that happens with a lot of people, and I think there's probably even been a few times over the years that I have misquoted it, but it's Bridge on the River Kwai, the Alec Guinness movie. One of the greatest films of all time. Anyway, if you've never seen Bridge on the River Kwai, you're robbing yourself. You need to go watch it. Anyway, a lot of people still refer to it as Bridge over the River Kwai. And I think I've probably even said that once or twice myself. So, I mean, that's the closest thing to it, but I've always thought the Schneider one was the Hot Chick, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, that's a good one to bring up, man. All right, next up, we've got Alex Von Gollum who writes, "I'd like to recommend the BBC miniseries adaptation of House of Cards." I heard they had that, starring Ian Richardson. He gives one of the best performances I've ever seen. It's 3 seasons, 1 per book. Season 2 to play the king. Boy, does he play the king. Have you guys seen it? No, I have heard of it. I have honestly watched very, very little. Not because I'm against it at all. I've never really gotten around to watching much BBC stuff. I think, you know, the BBC thing I've watched the most is probably Killing Eve. Then there's that Madsen show Bodyguard. I've watched that, but I haven't watched a lot. I'm not really aware of a lot, but I did hear about that British version of House of Cards, but I myself have never gotten around to watching it. I believe Robert said he has. If I remember correctly, I think Robert said he has, and if I'm remembering it correctly, I think he liked it quite a bit, but I have not yet seen it myself. Thanks for bringing that up, Alex. All right, next up, James Argento writes, "Star Wars getting delayed, I think, confirms Waititi is directing the next Star Wars film. Delaying it a year will allow Waititi to complete Thor 4 and Star Wars by 2023. I really don't think one has anything to do with the other. They're not, unless your name is Christopher Nolan, a studio's not going to delay their movie for the director for a year. There are some circumstances and some examples of that happening. But I don't think Star Wars would delay a billion-dollar franchise by a full year just because this director won't be ready to go for that movie. I think they just move on to another director then, and then probably bring in Taika to do it another time. But don't forget, Taika's not the only director. We've heard a lot of names lately, and a lot of Star Wars projects over the past 3 or 4 months has been, they're going to do this movie with this person. Okay, great. And they're going to do that movie with that person. Okay, great. Taika Waititi, don't forget, is just one of those names. Just one of those names. And they certainly wouldn't have readjusted Avatar. Because remember, the whole shift with Star Wars also included shifting Avatar. They wouldn't have shifted every Avatar film by a year and all the upcoming Star Wars films by a year just so they could get one guy in to direct one movie. That is probably not the approach that they're going to take. Now, that doesn't mean that coincidentally, the first film may not be Taika Waititi. The first film could be Taika Waititi. But I believe that would be coincidentally if that was the case. They're not going to shift James Cameron's Avatar and Star Wars and work out this whole thing around one director being able to come in and do one movie. I just don't think they would do that. You know, that's just, who knows? Stranger things have happened though, James. Stranger things have happened. All right. Tristan the Blurred writes, based on your suggestion, my wife and I gave Doom Patrol a try. After 2 episodes, I thought the show was just too weird. Oh, the show's weird. I mean, you make no mistake about it. The show is weird. I thought the show was too weird, but we kept with it. We're on episode 10, and we now think it's the best superhero show on TV. Incredible characters and writing. Thanks, John. I mean, listen, I had no intention of watching Doom Patrol. It did look weird. And I had watched Titans first, and I wasn't a big fan of I didn't hate Titans season 1. But so many people told me, oh, Titans is so great. And then I watched Titans, I'm like, this isn't that great to me. And so when I started hearing people saying, oh, John, watch Doom Patrol, I'm like, nah, I watched Titans, and yeah, DC Universe shows aren't doing it for me. But I finally broke down and tried it, and now I adore this show. I adore this show so much, and I'm glad and you're right, it is completely wacky. It is wacky and weird and different, and it takes a little while for you to wrap your brain around, you know, what it is they're doing. It's kind of unique that way. Thanks for sending that in, Tristan. All right, next up, Cameron Mann writes, hey guys, Rob, this question is for you. Rob, who is clearly not here right now. This question is for you. Have you heard the Audible production of The Sandman? I have listened to it, and it's amazing. Jude Law plays Morpheus. I have not listened to it, but I believe the only reason, again, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the only reason I'm aware of that is because I believe Rob has talked about that on this show. I think Rob has talked about that. I know Sandman is one of Rob's overall favorite stories. It's one of his favorite characters, one of his favorite stories. And I believe he has talked about that audio rendition of it on this show before. So I don't want to put words into his mouth in case I'm wrong about that, but that's what I believe the case is. Thanks for sharing that, Cameron. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, evening from the UK. As a payback for your show providing escapism and enthusiasm for films, I'll share a fact with you. Dark on Netflix has received 95% critic score and 94% audience score. Don't take my view, but this is a journey you have to go on. Yeah, I keep being told by tons of people. Like, there's 2 shows I keep hearing. One is Dark. That's the one I'm hearing from the most. But I think the other one is called 000, I believe. Yes, 000 is the other one, which I think is an Amazon Prime show. And I believe it's got Gabriel Byrne in it. I could be mistaken about that. Maybe I just thought it was a guy who looked like Gabriel Byrne. You know, it's got Gabriel Byrne in it. Anyway, so there's these 2 shows that everybody's telling me to try out. 000. I just had dinner with a friend last night, and he continued to recommend it to me. And the other one is Dark. So Ann and I have decided we're going to start watching Dark. I'm not quite sure when, but that's going to be one of the shows we watch together because a lot of Ann's friends have also told her that Dark is really, really good. And you know what? I think I know why I haven't started watching it yet. As I mentioned, had dinner with a buddy last night, and as he was starting to pitch 000 to me, he said something that I hadn't really thought about. And he said, you know, with everything being crap in the world right now, from our politics to the virus to like everything going on, like just the world is crap right now. He said, I'm just not in the mindset that I feel like watching something heavy. I feel like something that's going to have some excitement and some laughs and like it's just really entertaining and blah, blah. And normally my buddy likes really heavy stuff, but he's like, right now I'm just not in a mindset for that. And that's why he hasn't started watching Dark. And I thought to myself, is it possible that subconsciously you feel the same way and that's why you haven't jumped on Dark yet? I don't know. I'm theorizing here, but I do have a lot of people recommending that show to me, and I am going to start watching it just as soon as Ann and I get a chance to carve out when we're going to be able to start watching it together. All right, thanks for sharing that, Anonymous. All right, next up. Anonymous viewer also writes, oh dear, forgot to mention Rotten Tomatoes was the source of the Netflix Dark series. Oh, I assume that. Don't worry about that. But thank you for the clarification just in case. Good to support the channel. Have a good one and stay safe. Well, thank you so much for that, man. And again, thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, we have another anonymous viewer who writes, hey, John. Do you think the New Mutants could possibly become the new litmus test for post-pandemic theatrical reopenings? Well, I mean, we talked about this on the show yesterday. I said, now, for those of you who might have missed it, New Mutants announced that they are, as of right now, keeping their August 28th release date. Now, most people think that's ludicrous. That's just a pipe dream. There's no way they're going to be able to keep their August 28th release date. But I think they might. And here's why. And I mentioned this on the show yesterday, but for those of you who might have missed it, here's kind of my thought and rationale behind that. New Mutants cannot go to video prior to getting a theatrical release, right? We know that. There are contracts involved. They have a number of contracts with a number of people involved in the film that New Mutants is getting a theatrical release. So there's that. So they can't even go to streaming. And by the way, Disney can't just put... A lot of people keep saying, oh, they should just put it on Disney+. Disney can't put it on Disney+, because there was a pre-existing contract with HBO. When New Mutants is ready to go to streaming, it goes to HBO first. So you can't forget that. Anyway. So Disney's sitting there and they're thinking, well, listen, this New Mutants movie has been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. At some point, we got to get this thing out there. I mean, it's literally been years. It's been years. We got to get this thing out there. So my theory is this. I think Disney just might, I think it's a 50-50 chance. I think Disney just might take whatever theaters are open, because they're clearly not all going to be open by August 28th. But they just might take whatever theaters are open and just release New Mutants. It does a couple of things for Disney. Number one, it satisfies those contractual obligations that they have to make sure it gets a theatrical release, which then opens the door that in 3 months after they launch it theatrically, they can then put it on streaming to HBO. Once they give it over to HBO, the clock starts ticking until they can get it back and get it back on Disney+. So it's a win for them because it satisfies their contractual obligations. It's another win for them that it's an act of goodwill to the movie theaters. You know, Disney can step in and say, you know what, our movie theater partners, none of them other studios are helping you out with new content. Come on over to Papa Bob Iger. We'll give you a brand new anticipated movie. Boom. So if they put it out in just whatever theaters are open, they satisfy the contractual obligations. They become a little bit of the knight in shining armor to the movie theaters. And it's a gift to the audience. You know, people have been waiting to see New Mutants for years. Particularly, people have just been waiting to get into the theaters to see a new movie at all. And in those areas around the country, and verily unto all the world, in those areas that are able to have their theaters open because they've managed the pandemic crisis properly, it's a gift to those fans saying, you know what? Here you go. Here's a brand new theatrical movie for you guys. Now, look, they're still going to take a hit financially. They will. But I think at this point, Disney just might be looking at Disney, or it might be looking at New Mutants and going, God, this movie is just a write-off at this point. I mean, it's been 3 years. It's a write-off at this point. Let's do something. Let's satisfy the contracts. Let's be heroes to the movie theaters. Let's be heroes to the audience. And then let's just get this ball rolling and get it out there August 28th. Whether that means there's 5,000 screens open or whether that means there's 300 screens open, let's just get it out there. So while I understand a lot of people thinking it's impossible that New Mutants can make that August 28th release date, that's why I think there might be a decent chance it will, because they're just going to say to hell with it, just put it out. Because unlike a lot of other movies, Disney stands to get a bunch of wins just by releasing it, making the best of a bad situation. Anyway, and then we'll see what happens, man. Then we'll see what happens. I mean, hey, listen, if they were able to come out on very limited screens that are available and still make, I don't know, $150 million, that might become the litmus test, dude. It might become the litmus test. All right. Horace Jim Bob Jackson Jr. writes, hey, y'all, I'm a nobody, but to the guy with the script, yesterday somebody wrote in an idea, asking a question, asking how they can get a script that they wrote for a Power Rangers show to Hasbro, and I had to break some very bad news, unfortunately. Another suggestion would be to adapt it for YouTube. And if it's popular, may get noticed by some bigwig at a studio. Love from Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas. That's the name that Rob dropped yesterday. Here's the problem with adapting it for YouTube. You still have to get somebody to put up money to make it. And you won't be allowed to make it because you can't put it, because this guy's script is specifically a Power Rangers thing. They'll get stopped dead in their tracks with a copyright lawsuit. So, but I mean, you could adapt it into something else, right? Adapting it is not a bad idea, because this is going to be very, very difficult to get that into the hands of any kind of studio, because again, studios don't accept unsolicited screenplays. You've got to get a reputable literary agent first, and that's very difficult to do. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody who wants to be a writer. By all means, just understand the difficult path that lies ahead to becoming a professional writer. It's not easy. It's not easy, but that's why it's worth it. Anyway, next up. Thanks for that, Horace Jim. Jose Sanchez writes, so I'm 21 and I just love movies and its art. One of the reasons why I'm studying to be an actor. But I was watching Thief, James Caan, wow, then Heat, 1995, Heat being the biggest Oscar snub of all time. I don't agree. I don't agree at all. Why do you think it didn't get Oscar love? Well, yeah, Heat is a beloved movie. It's a great movie. It is. It is a great movie. But it did not get snubbed. I mean, you got to remember, Heat came out in 1995, which is the same year that Braveheart came out. So at the 1996 Academy Awards, because the awards are held 1 year after the movie comes out, in the 1996 Academy Awards, very rightfully so, the movie that won Best Picture was Braveheart. And that, because to me, Braveheart is a top 20 film of all time. And it's all subjective, and there are going to be some who disagree with me, and that's cool. That's great. That's why we're all friends. Braveheart, to me, is clearly a better film than Heat. I love Heat. Heat's great. You know, Val Kilmer at the height of his powers. You know, De Niro, Pacino, both before they started kind of tanking it a little bit for a few years before they came back again. I love Heat so much, but it's just an unfortunate thing that there just happened to be better films that year. That's why the Oscars are the most impossible awards to win. You can't just be great. You got to be great and hope somebody else just wasn't a little bit greater. And in this case, you know, Braveheart clearly. And again, you know, my definition of snub is this. You can't say something was a snub unless you can make a legitimate argument that it should have won. And in a year against Braveheart, I personally don't feel there's an argument for that, or almost any film in film history, to beat out Braveheart. There are only a handful of movies that you can make an argument could beat Braveheart for best film of the year, and I just kind of feel that way. I think Braveheart is one of the greatest motion pictures of all time, but that's not to diminish how great Heat was. And you know what? If Heat had come out in a number of other years, Heat very well could have been nominated and yea, verily won Best Picture at the Academy Awards in maybe a lot of other years. But it opened the same year Braveheart did. And that is a tall ladder to climb, my friend. Anyway, but it is truly one of the great films, Jose. I'm glad you brought it up. All right, Orange Hand writes, someone recently asked you about getting their own Power Ranger script. Yeah, yes, they did. We were just talking about that again. Written, I had an idea for a Power Rangers story, which I decided to rework into its own IP, and I'm currently writing it as a novel. That's a great idea. I think this is the best way of getting my story out there. That is a great idea. As a matter of fact, you know who else did that? The girl who wrote 50 Shades of Grey. Some people forget that 50 Shades of Grey was originally written as Twilight fan fiction. But then what she did was she took it and reworked it into its own story. And then 50 Shades of Grey went on to make billions of dollars between its books, its associated IP, the movies made a lot of money, all that kind of stuff. Love or hate 50 Shades of Grey, there's no denying it was a huge financial success. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen every single time, but there's great precedent for that, Orange Hand, and that's a great idea. And I'm glad you passed that along. That's a wonderful idea to share. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John, Regarding the Fly episode from Breaking Bad, my personal favorite episode of Ozymandias might be a slightly better one, but at least one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's very divisive. I love it, but some do find it boring. You'll forgive it to be divisive. It was directed by Rian Johnson, who directed a little movie called The Last Jedi. Also, did you watch Doom Patrol? Haven't seen the newest episode of Doom Patrol. Haven't seen the newest one yet. There's a couple things you have to keep in mind about The Fly. That episode of Breaking Bad. When you go to just about any of the big rankings of the best episodes ever of Breaking Bad, it will almost always be in the top 25%. I remember it was a long time ago. Somebody brought up the Fly episode before, and I said, personally, I really love it. This would have been months ago, maybe even a year ago. And I remember afterwards going online and looking up some lists. And I remember like big outlets like Vulture, they listed it in their top 25%. I think it was like number 12 or whatever. Out of the 60 plus episodes, number 12. I think IGN had it as top 10. A number of them had them in their top 5. There are some people who didn't like The Fly. There's no getting around that. I don't know that it's completely divisive, because that would suggest there's an equal part measure of people who didn't like The Fly and people who did. And I have not found that to be true. I find the vast majority of people really do like The Fly, but there are a number of people who don't, and it's all subjective. The thing you've got to keep in mind about the episode of The Fly is that there was a budget problem on Breaking Bad that year. So Terry Gilliam was found in a situation that they needed at least one episode that was going to cost no money. Well, not literally no money, but basically no money. They needed an episode that was going to cost almost nothing because they needed the budget for the rest of the show. So they were facing a budget problem. So The Fly episode became that episode that they needed to come up with an episode that hopefully would accomplish a lot to the story, but also didn't cost anything to make. So the vast majority of that story is just like two guys in a confined space, right? So that's what they had to do. So Rian Johnson comes in to direct that episode. All you got going to be able to do is have a couple guys and a setting and go. The result to me was, and I think it might have been IGN that put it this way, and it's true. The result of it was for an entire almost 20 episodes in front or behind it, the most character development you've seen in that show. And it became like the first opportunity for any kind of bonding. Like if you remember the flow of Breaking Bad, it became the first episode for any sort of bonding between Jesse and Walt. At that point, you got more into the understanding of the characters of Walt and Jesse all through the hunt for this annoying little fly. To me, it was absolutely brilliant the way they did that. And considering it was making lemonade out of lemons, they got handed this card. Hey, we literally need to do an episode where we spend almost no money because we need the budget for other stuff. So let's throw this episode in here, make the best of it that you can. And I thought they did one of the best episodes of Breaking Bad with it. And put into the hands of a lesser director, it probably would have ended up being a disaster. Put into the hands of a great director like Rian Johnson. By the way, still guys, if you guys have not seen Knives Out, there's a reason it got so much Oscar attention. But put into the hands of a Rian Johnson, he was able to make something very special out of that. And again, but it's like any television or any movie. It's subjective. Some people are going to look at it and not like it. Some people are going to look at it and love it. But The Fly, I think you'll find pretty consistently ranks in the upper tier for most power lists of like best Breaking Bad episodes. But that doesn't mean everybody has to appreciate it. Absolutely not. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Ben. Appreciate that, man. All right. Next up, Logan James Kynaston writes in, "Hey, John. Fun fact, did you know that there is a deleted scene from the first Avengers called The Cop and the Waitress? I have heard about that. The waitress was played by Ashley Johnson, who played Ellie in Last of Us. Yes, but I know her more from, what's it called? Blindside? Hold a second. Blind Spot? Blind Spot. That's the name of it. Blind Spot. I think it's called, let me just double check it. Yes, the Jamie Alexander show Blind Spot, which was really good. It got a little weird near the end. But the first few seasons of Blind Spot I thought were really good. But anyway, I know Ashley Johnson more from that. She plays a character called Pattinson, part of the crime unit. And she was really good in that. I liked her character a lot. But yeah, she is also the actress who does the voice of Ellie. Although she is like, how old is she? 10, 20, 30? I think she's like 35 years old. Which is funny, a 35-year-old doing the voice of Ellie. But her voice is perfect for it, right? But yeah, that's who actually, let me bring her up here. Give me a second. So those of you who hear us talking about this know who it is specifically we're talking about. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Let me just bring this up. So this is Ashley Johnson. And actually that picture of her giving the fist bump, that is from the show Blind Spot. Yeah, she was really good in Blind Spot. Again, I thought that was a great show for the first few seasons. It started to fall apart a little bit, but I liked it a lot. And that is Ashley Johnson. So there you go. Thanks for sending that little bit of trivia there, Logan. All right. Next up, Wear a Goddamn Mask writes, went down the YouTube rabbit hole. I do that all the time. And saw a Coca-Cola, the Action Max video game system, and Leonard Part 6 crossover commercial. It was terrible. Thoughts on Leonard Part 6, and have you ever heard or owned an... I have no recollection of Action Max. I have no recollection of it whatsoever. Leonard Part 6. Now, this was back in the day when Bill Cosby was the king of entertainment. He was the undisputed king of media. And back in the day when he was my favorite comedian and all this kind of stuff, and even then, we all knew that movie was dog crap. Even then, with him being the biggest, most powerful guy in all of entertainment and having millions of fans like myself, even then, we all knew that movie was dog crap. I mean, it was absolutely terrible. It was absolutely horrible. All right, Wear a Mask writes, my 3 favorite shows on Hulu are Archer. I love Archer. It's my favorite animated show. My all-time favorite animated show is Archer. I mean, I shouldn't just say animated period, but like say animated sitcom. I mean, you know, I love Family Guy and I love Simpsons and there are a number of others, but Archer to me is the funniest animated show of all time. Of all time. I love that show. Anyway, Archer, Dave, it's a mixture of Curb Your Enthusiasm and Atlanta with Heart. I've seen that advertised on Hulu, but I've never watched it myself, but I'm hearing a lot of people talk about it. And It's Always Sunny, an R-rated Seinfeld with fun but unlikable characters. HM, I don't know what HM means. To what, honorable mention to What We Do in the Shadows. Have you heard or seen any of these? Well, I just talked about What We Do in the Shadows, though, might be the best show. Now, remember, it is an FX thing, but they are now merged in with Hulu. What We Do in the Shadows is the best show they've ever done. And I thought What We Do in the Shadows as a TV series was a bad idea. I thought they're just ripping off their own movie, and the movie's magnificent. Leave it alone. There's no point making it a show, blah, blah, especially if it's not going to be the original cast. What's the point of doing What We Do in the Shadows if it's not the original cast? This is just going to be a lame carbon copy, and it's my favorite show on Hulu ever. Maybe not my favorite FX show ever. Maybe not my favorite FX show ever. My favorite FX show ever is Sons of Anarchy, which is now on Hulu. But I mean, when it came out, it wasn't on Hulu, it was exclusively FX anyway. I might be, nitpicking here at straws, but What We Do in the Shadows is absolutely brilliant. Archer, I completely love. Haven't had a chance to see Dave, and I've never really gotten into Always Sunny, but they certainly do a lot of stuff. I love Hulu, man. I absolutely love Hulu. All right, next up. Brent Gilson writes, and sends in like a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that, Brent. I appreciate that, man. And Brent writes, one of my favorite Lord of the Rings quotes, besides "You bow to no one," is Sam in Two Towers. There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. I rewatched the trilogy for the first time in over a decade this past week. Absolutely brilliant. Lord of the Rings trilogy is one of these special and rare occasions that every time you go back to it, let me rephrase. My favorite restaurant in Las Vegas is a restaurant in the Paris Hotel that's owned by Gordon Ramsay and is called Gordon Ramsay's Steak. That's the name of the restaurant. And so it's a little expensive, so I don't go there every time I go to Vegas. I probably go there twice a year. Twice a year I'll go to this restaurant because it is pretty expensive. At least for me, it's expensive. For some other people, maybe it's not expensive. For me, it's expensive because it ends up being about $100 per plate, which is a little bit more than I'd like to spend when I go to a restaurant. So I go about twice a year, and I always get the same thing. John, what does any of this have to do with Lord of the Rings? You'll see. I always get the same thing. Ann and I both always get the same thing. We get Gordon Ramsay's signature dish, which is his beef Wellington. So we get the beef Wellington. It's my favorite thing to eat in Vegas. And every time we eat it, it's like, oh, this is amazing. And we always remember how great it is. So when we go back to Vegas and when we do go over to Steak and eat there, it's like, yes, there it is. Just as good as I remembered. Lord of the Rings is a little bit different. You would think that every time we would sit down to watch Lord of the Rings, we would have that same feeling. It's just as good as I remembered. But it's not. It's different. It's better. Like every time I watch Lord of the Rings, it's like I go a year without watching Lord of the Rings. And I remember, it's like one of the best. One of the best. But then you sit down and watch it again a year later, and it's like, I forgot how good this is. It's like every time you sit down to watch Lord of the Rings, it exceeds even your recollection of it. Like most things in life, like Gordon Ramsay's steak, beef Wellington at his restaurant Steak, you eat it's like, yeah, there it is. It's great. I remember that. But like Lord of the Rings is one of those weird things when you watch it again, it's like, I forgot. It's almost like our recollection isn't capable of holding or believing, it couldn't have been that good. We must not be remembering it. It couldn't have been that good, but it is. It's even better. And it's one of those things. And yes, Samwise has a number of great lines in it. I mean, recently somebody wrote in about, John, we don't talk enough. We talk about, and Rohan Lancer and you bow to no one and on. Tons of great memorable lines. But somebody brought up, I may not be able to carry it for you, but I can carry you. It's overlooked. That is truly one of the great lines in cinematic history. I may not be able to carry it for you, but I can carry you. Pfft, shut up. I mean, that's great. But that is also another one. The good things in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Samwise gets overlooked a lot. He gets overlooked a lot. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Brent. Really appreciate you supporting the channel on that level, man. I really do. All right, next up. Brandon writes, hey, John, I wanted to know if you saw the rape. I knew somebody was going to write in about the Ray Park thing. I knew someone at some point was going to write in about the Ray Park thing. Okay. Take a little bit of a sip here before we get into this. Brandon writes, hey, John, I wanted to know if you saw that Ray Park posted on his Instagram last night. I won't describe the post as it is inappropriate, but what are your thoughts? Will Ray Park be fired from Lucasfilm, and will we ever see him as Maul again? All right, so here's the situation. For those of you who may not know, and I did not see the Instagram post myself, but I have read about it. So Ray Park, he was the Headless Horseman in that Johnny Depp Headless Horseman movie, and I'm forgetting the name of it for some reason. And he was Toad in the original X-Men movie, but most notably, and he was Snake Eyes in the G.I. Joe movies, not the new one coming out, but he was Snake Eyes in the G.I. Joe movie. And most notably, he was Darth Maul. He didn't do the voice of Darth Maul, but he was the guy you saw doing all the action stuff. I've had a chance to meet and hang out with Ray Park on a couple of occasions. Very nice dude. Look, all I can tell you is my limited exposure and my limited experiences with him. Very nice, friendly dude. That's all I can say. Is in those limited experiences I had with him, seemed like a really nice guy. Anyway. For those of you who don't know what's going on, Apparently, he put up a video on his Instagram of himself receiving oral sex. I won't go into it too much more than that. Won't go into too much more than that. Stupid move. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to discuss it. Mostly because this is TMZ stuff, and I try to avoid the TMZ stuff. I mean, look, I'll say what we all know. That was dumb. That was dumb. Will we ever see... Well, look, but the reality is, in getting the part that does tie into movies, what do we think about his future as Maul? The reality is we were probably never going to see him as Maul again anyway. And look, after watching Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and seeing... Because when Red Skull comes up in Infinity War, I thought for sure that was Hugo Weaving. He looks just like Hugo Weaving in the makeup. They made that guy look exactly like Hugo Weaving wearing the Red Skull makeup. But it wasn't Hugo Weaving. It was another actor that just looked... They made him look exactly the same in the makeup and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, Ray Park never did the voice of Darth Maul anyway. It is not a big deal to get another... Look, all other things being equal, I want... If you're going to have Darth Maul on screen in a live action environment, all other things being equal, I want it to be Ray Park because that's who has done it. But it's not like it's the most important thing in the world. And look, I got a lot of Star Wars fans mad at me when I mentioned that it's okay if it's not Peter Mayhew in the Chewbacca costume. Now, of course, I love Peter Mayhew. But if it's not Peter Mayhew in the costume, that's okay. All other things being equal, and if able, I would love to see Peter Mayhew be the guy in the costume. But if it's not actually going to be that big of a deal. You know? And I'm sorry, but that's true. That's true. Just like it's not that big of a deal that it wasn't David Prowse in the Darth Vader costume anymore. I mean... all other things being equal, I want the original guy. But if it's not, most people aren't going to notice. It doesn't take an Oscar-level actor to go, as James Earl Jones does the voice. You know what I mean? So there's a couple things to take into consideration. Number one, I don't know that we were ever going to see Darth Maul in live action again anyway. That's the first thing. There's nothing to suggest we were going to see Darth Maul in live action again anyway. Number two, if they do want to do Darth Maul in live action again, it's not that big of a deal. Number one, Ray never did the voice. And number two, you just get another actor and do what they do with Red Skull. You got to put them all in the Darth Maul makeup. Do your best, makeup wizards, to make it look as much like Ray Park looked like under the mask and under the makeup and all the prosthetic stuff. So, all other things being equal, I'd like it to be Ray Park, but it's actually not a big deal if it's not. And I say that as somebody who likes Ray Park. So regarding the video itself, I don't want to comment. I mean, obviously it was dumb, but I don't want to comment on it further. That's TMZ level stuff. As far as the possibility of seeing a particular actor in a role again moving forward, number one, there was no guarantee we were ever going to get that character again anyway. And even if it is, you can just replace it with another actor because it's under several degrees of separation of makeup and prosthetics, and makeup wizards can make it look like the same person's under the mask. So that's kind of my thought on it. I mean, I know other people... Listen, I know that if I did a standalone video right now, I made my reaction to the Ray Park situation, I know that video would get 50,000 views. Like that. I know that video would instantly get 50,000 views. But it's the TMZ kind of nonsense that I don't want. I don't like talking about. It's not what I want my focus to be and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate that you asked, and I totally understand, Brandon, why you asked. A lot of people are going to be wondering about it, so I totally get why you asked. No shade on you, my friend. But I hope you understand why I don't really want to go into the incident all that much on itself, because it's gets into the stuff that I don't like talking about. But anyway, that's just me. Thanks for asking, man. All right. Next up. Let's see here. Russell Amador writes, Hey, John. Every time I go through the Disney Plus library, I think how wild it is that The Mandalorian is still the only original, highly anticipated grab your popcorn show that they have. The even crazier part is season 2 will come before anything else does. Yeah, listen. I am a bit disillusioned with Disney Plus. I'm not going to lie. I am a bit disillusioned with it. It's a great repository of curated content, sure. If I feel like watching Ant-Man, great. It's there. But the bread and butter of these streaming networks moving forward into the streaming wars is original exclusive content. Netflix is putting out like 60 or 70 pieces, or put out 60 or 70 original pieces of content in July alone. Right? I am very disappointed. Now, you can say, well, but John, the last few months has been the pandemic and blah, blah. Yeah, that's fine. But you should have launched with other stuff already ready to go. Launch with Mandalorian. Have something else already shot into the can, ready to debut 3 or 4 weeks after Mandalorian. And also have another thing ready, shot in the can to debut a couple weeks after that new piece of content. And then they were like, we'll launch with Mandalorian, and then we'll see what happens. And I get the pandemic has thrown a wrench in their plans. What I'm saying is the original plan without the pandemic turns out it wasn't so hot, because we all watched The Mandalorian and then we're like, great, why do I have Disney Plus now? We don't even know when the next big original thing is coming. We're just sitting around. A lot of people said they should have had another high-profile show in the can, ready to go, 1 or 2 weeks after Mandalorian finished its first season. And they're right, they should have. And it's been frustrating. And I think this week I'm probably going to cancel Disney Plus until they've got something to watch. Now, let's be honest here. Mandalorian isn't the only high-profile thing they've put on. It's the only high-profile series, yes. But they also did the launch of Hamilton, right? That's huge. That's massive. So there's that. But that's 2 things in what? 7 months? When did it launch? Mid-November? December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Hell, we're at 8 months. Disney Plus has been around 8 months. And they've had 2 high-profile pieces of content. And I love Disney, but I think this week, barring some major concrete announcements, like, hey guys, we're going to start launching Falcon and Winter Soldier on this date. It doesn't even have to be like in 2 weeks. Just tell me the date, But if not, I honestly think I'm just throwing money away every month. So I think I'm probably going to cancel Disney Plus. And then maybe I'll re-sign up for it once, the significant things I've been looking forward to come out. But right now, I've been paying $8 a month so I could watch Mandalorian. I feel like none of the big streamers have really crushed their launch. Disney got all sorts of success with all sorts of subscribers signing up. So by that definition of success, it's a big win. But it's also been Disney Plus has been a bit of a disappointment. And I might cancel it this week. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, so you're not the only one, Russell. All right. Sorry, guys. My throat has been rough this week. I took 3 weeks off of doing regular shows, and then I jumped back into it hardcore, and my throat has been pretty raw this week, so forgive the odd. Anyway, Dave Atkins writes, super disappointed Microchip wasn't in Punisher Season 2. Love the chemistry and bromance in the first, and seeing Frank laugh and taking the mic out of each other was a joy to watch. Seeing him feel again after the loss of his family. Yeah, listen, Punisher Season 1 was great. And that character, what was the character's actual name? I'm trying to remember the name of the actual character. But anyway, the Microchip character, great chemistry. They had a great, very unique dynamic and relationship. But I think it would have been a mistake to have that character in Season 2. I think it would have been a mistake to have that character in Season 2. Because they gave that character his conclusion. Right? That character got his conclusion at the end of season 1. And it was weird to think in terms of Punisher, but it was a happy ending for that character. It was a smile, feel-good ending for that character. And he got his life back. And I think to bring him back in to season 2, I think would have undone some of that specialness. Because listen, I'll tell you what, I thought season 2 was as good as season 1. I thought season 2 was great. And I never once felt, I just don't see where that character fits into that story of season 2. I thought what they did with season 2 was borderline perfect. And I don't know that there would have been room for him. So I love the character, I did, and I loved his chemistry with Frank, but I was also kind of happy that they left him out. I was kind of happy that they left him out and put him down that way. All right, next up. Was that Dave? Yes. Next up, K Major writes, finally saw Jumanji Next Level. Definitely not better than the last one, but a solid film in my opinion. Oh my God, the best part of that movie is Kevin Hart playing Danny Glover. All of you is a different color. You've looked like, I haven't looked like this since you've looked like this never. That was hilarious. A third. You know what? I came out of Jumanji The Next Level, and let me bring this up here. Jumanji The Next Level, because it ended up making more money than you think. Box office. So Jumanji The Next Level, let me go here at Box Office Mojo. So it came out of the gate slower than the first Jumanji did, but it ended up making almost $800 million. Now, the first one made over 900, so it was a drop, sure, but this was still a movie that made $796 million at the box office. $796 million at the box office. That's a win. Any way you cut it, that's a win. It's a big win. Now, I thought quality-wise, I thought it was a significant step down from the first one. I still like Jumanji The Next Level. I came out, I gave it a positive review. I like it. But I loved the first one. The first one was so great. And there are definitely things to really like about this one. I mean, Dwayne Johnson imitating Danny DeVito, I thought was great. Kevin Hart doing Danny Glover was great. I mean, it was all, that whole part of it I thought worked really well. It's just overall, I felt like it was missing a lot that the first one had. Or maybe a couple things might have been played out too much. So I came walking out of that thinking, I don't know that they should do a third one, to be honest. I don't know that they should even bother doing a third one. That was my honest first opinion coming out. But it's hard to make an argument against doing a third one when this one made $796 million. It's very difficult to make an argument against a third one. So yeah, I believe they're going to do a third one. I'll go further than that. I think it's a foregone conclusion. They're going to do a third one. Now, whether that comes out in 2022 or 2023 or 2024, depending how we get out of this mess that we're in right now, I'm not sure. But even though I don't think the movie needs a third one, I thought the second one, while still good, was a big step down from the first one. It's hard to argue against $796 million, my friends. So on that level, yeah, I could totally see them doing another one. I absolutely can. All right, next up. John Klobuchar writes, honestly, Diversity Day is the most uncomfortable episode of The Office, in my opinion. Anytime Michael Scott is unintentionally insensitive, it's super painful to watch. I don't even remember I almost never remember the names of episodes. I remember the name of the second Exodus in Battlestar Galactica. I remember the name of the Fly episode. I also remember the name of Scott's Tots from The Office. But other than that, I never remember the names of episodes from television shows. Even my all-time favorites, I don't know the names of the episodes. And so I can't remember which one Diversity Day is. All I know is that one of the most brilliant, probably the hallmark brilliant thing about The Office was how it always made you feel uncomfortable. Scott's Tots was a great example of that. But anything regarding Michael trying to be sensitive to the gay community or trying to be sensitive towards minorities or whenever he's trying to be sensitive, it comes across completely opposite and it just makes you squirm in your seat. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. You know, give me a second. Now I want to know which one we're talking about. The Office Diversity Day. I'm sure it'll come up. Diversity Day is the second episode of the first season of the American comedy television. It was written by B.J. Novak. The Intern. B.J. Novak wrote that episode. Anyway, I can't find a description for it, but it's just episode number 2. Episode number 2. I'm seeing pictures from it. Man, they all look young. John Krasinski looks young. Pam looks young. Michael looks... Oh, they all look so young. Yeah, it had to be... Yeah, this is season 1. I'm going to have to go back and look into that a little bit later, John. Thanks for mentioning it to me. All right, next up. Dave XP writes, 1 of 2. Something lacking from the Homecoming movies... I'm assuming you meaning the Spider-Man movies, the Spider-Man Homecoming movies. Anyway, is good hand-to-hand combat. The action set pieces from the Maguire movies were long, personal, and well-crafted. In Homecoming, he barely exchanges punches with Vulture, and in Far From Home, he's mostly fighting holograms and very CGI drones. I kind of miss those well-crafted combat scenes. I'll tell you what. I never felt that missing. Because I never felt there was a lack of exciting action. And there are some characters that lend themselves better to great hand-to-hand combat, i.e. Batman. Batman, you got to have great hand-to-hand combat, which is one of the reasons why I like Batman vs. Superman so much, particularly the warehouse scene when Batman wrecks a bunch of fools. I love that so much. Spider-Man... I don't know that his action has to be limited to hand-to-hand combat. I think there's a lot of different ways Spider-Man can do big, exciting action. Not that I would have minded more hand-to-hand combat, and I'm not taking away from your point at all, Dave, at all. It's just, I didn't sense that missing element. You know what I mean? Watching those movies, I never felt that was a missing element because I always felt like I was getting my exciting action sequences. Whether it was hand-to-hand fisticuffs or not. So yeah, I never felt that personally. I'm sure you're not alone. And yeah, listen, some of the drone stuff bothered me. That's why I didn't like Far From Home as much as Homecoming. I like Far From Home. Don't get me wrong. I like Far From Home very much, but I thought it was a step down from Homecoming. Let's see where they go with the third film in this equation. Hopefully they get back to a little bit of that magic from the first one, in my opinion. But yeah, I got to say, I've never really felt that as a missing element myself because Spider-Man's power set allows a lot of different type of action between his slinging, his what's the word I'm looking for? His reflexes, the webbing, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different types of things you can do with him action-wise that open up the door for some really thrilling sequences without it necessarily being fisticuffs. But I wouldn't have minded more fisticuffs. I guess again, I've never even thought about it, Dave. That's why I think I'm kind of struggling with it because I've never even considered that. I've just watched those movies and I always thought the excitement and action was part of things that worked for them. Some of the weaknesses come from other things. Although the drones were a bit iffy, yes. But yeah, I never experienced that myself. But you did, and I'm sure you're not alone, man. I'm sure you're not alone. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, my big issue with Cursed, that's the Netflix show, is that seemingly everyone in Nimwe's village are horrible bullies who are just as bigoted as the Red Paladins. And then somehow we're supposed to feel bad about them getting killed and want to see them get her revenge for them. You know what? I never thought about that, Ryan. You're absolutely right. Now, granted, that's only one episode. That's just the first episode. But you're right. So, in Cursed, this kind of different take on the Arthurian legend. This girl's a little bit different. I don't know why everybody... First of all, she's growing up in this fae village. They're all fairies. They're magically based things with a connection to the hidden and all that kind of stuff. Why they were all calling her witch when they're all kind of magic-based... They're all touched by magic. All the fae are kind of touched by magic to one degree or another. Anyway, so they introduced Nimue, the main character of the show, and she's horribly mistreated in the village that she lives. She lives in this fae village. And then Ryan raises a very good point. they all treat her like shit. You're right. Now that I look back on it, they all act like asses. And they all treat her terribly. And they all come across as intolerant bullies. You're right. So when her people start getting wiped out, I didn't even think about this at the time, but I think you're probably right. It's hard to feel emotionally invested in the horror of, oh no, her people are being wiped out. Those people were assholes. So I'm thinking not that that meant they deserve to be wiped out, but I think subconsciously you might be onto something there, that I probably failed to connect with that really emotionally because all I saw were these people being total jerks. It's not like they showed Nimue in this peace-loving, wonderful village that all had a little bit of a struggle understanding how to deal with Nimue, but they're shown to be good, kind, gentle people regardless, even though they're not quite sure how to deal with Nimue. Because if that happened and then they get wiped out, I'd feel the terribleness, if you will. I'd feel the tragedy of it. But instead, it starts off showing the Fae as being just a bunch of intolerant asses. And so they get slaughtered, and I never felt that real emotional connection to the tragedy of it. Because maybe subconsciously I didn't think it was that big of a tragedy because they were jerks. I don't know. That's a great observation, Ryan. I'm glad you pointed that out. Thank you. All right, next up. Suthius writes, hey, Mr. Campea, hope all is well. All is well, Suthius. Thank you so much. When you said break, I thought it would be 3 months. Oh, no. I always said it would be a few weeks. When I took the break, I always said it was just going to be a few weeks. Anyway, I thought it'd be 3 months, not 3 weeks. Good to see you and Mr. Burnett again. Okay, I just saw a trailer for Helstrom. Thought it was put on hold. Anyway, it looks neat. I know nothing about it. Is it superhero? Well, it's sort of superhero. And by the way, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Like yesterday was a packed show. We had 8 topics on yesterday's show. But aside from yesterday's show, it's been a little bit of a struggle. Like, I'll be honest with you. I have told Rob, I've talked to Rob a little bit. I am wondering, with Tenet and Mulan and everything being pushed back again, I'm wondering if I might maybe need to put the show on hiatus again, because it's like trying to be ESPN when there's no sports. Now, thankfully for ESPN, baseball is back, UFC came back, football's coming back soon enough. But man, it's hard doing a movie-related channel when there's no new movies. It's been a struggle. Although it's funny still, every day there seems to have things come up that are really fun to talk about. And like I said, yesterday's show was packed. Could not believe how many big things we had to talk about yesterday. So I don't know, at some point I might have to consider putting up another hiatus just because there's nothing going on in the world of movies right now. But I don't know. Maybe if things keep coming up every day and we're able to keep rolling, we'll keep rolling. But it's been challenging. Yes, Helstrom. So Helstrom is a really interesting situation. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Helstrom is a really interesting situation because, first of all, it was the last show that, like, I can't remember what the name of the division was, but like this Marvel television division was able to do and put together before they got absorbed under Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige was taking them over. And so because there were other shows being planned, there was a Ghost Rider show being planned. There's a few other things, and those all got scrapped. This was the one project that survived and got to go into production. It's completely separate from the MCU. As a matter of fact, I don't even believe Marvel is putting their logo on it. Even though this is a Marvel character, I don't think Marvel's even putting their logo on it. The logo isn't in the trailer, and I doubt you're going to see it at the beginning of the movie. So I think Marvel is also trying to separate itself from Helstrom. So, look, I don't know a ton about Helstrom. Okay, so Helstrom is basically Damien and Satana, although they changed the name of Satana to just Anna for the show. So Damien and Anna are brother and sister, right? In the comic books, I believe Helstrom made his debut in a Ghost Rider. Yeah, I think it was a Ghost Rider comic that he made his debut in. So in the comics, and I stress that because I don't know if they're going to bring this element into the show or not. They probably will, but I don't know. In the comics, a bunch of Hell Lords in the different levels and, you know, the different dimensions of hell come up with a plan together to have a human child demon born into the world. Because they figured that child born would become their gateway to come and invade the real world. So if I'm remembering this correctly. So all these demons get together and one demon takes on human form, takes on a pretend life, gets married to a human girl, and they have a child, and it's Damien Helstrom. And Damien has all sorts of hell power. I think he's got some similar power sets to Ghost Rider, but I think he's even more powerful than Ghost Rider. Anyway. And he's sometimes an anti-hero, sometimes a villain, sometimes a hero, whatever. But that's basically the gist of Helstrom. So now they're doing this show. And there's clearly a supernatural element to it. Whether they're going to actually say Damien Helstrom is the son of Satan, Anna Helstrom is the daughter of Satan. I don't know if they're going to go that far. Or of these high, dark demon lords of hell. I don't know if they're going to go that far. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know if I would call Damien Helstrom a superhero. So I don't know if that's the Tom. I mean, it's certainly a superhero type show. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Listen, they've said that they wanted this show to definitely go into the darker elements, the darker corners of Marvel, which might be part of the reason why Marvel is separating itself from it a little bit. But they really wanted to go darker. They wanted to go into these dark places that the Marvel comics have gone sometimes, that maybe the on-screen stuff hasn't. And if the trailer is any indication, they're definitely going to do that. I mean, the scene in the trailer where they're in the prison cell with their mother, that was actually kind of freaky. So it's going to be, how close they're going to stick to the comic stuff, I don't know. Are they going to make Damien that powerful? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, but it does look interesting. It does look interesting. I'm up for it. Sign me up. I thought the trailer was pretty good. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Suthius. All right, next up. Darklock63 writes, did you know that John Williams scored the following TV shows? Land of the Giants, Lost in Space, Time Tunnel, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, all created and produced by Alan Irwin. I think I did know he did Lost in Space, but I didn't know about any of the rest of them. I mean, John Williams is just so associated now. He is called the maestro of the movies. That's what they call him. For movies, I think we forget he was doing other stuff before then, too. So I think I remember the Lost in Space one, but I didn't know about any of those, the rest of them. I'll have to go look that up. Thanks for pointing that out, man. I love getting these little facts from the viewers. That's good to know. All right. Thanks so much for that, Darklock. Darklock also writes, and so submit like tips $20. Thank you so much for your support, Darklock. I appreciate that, man. Favorite Star Trek, where do you go? Favorite Star Trek soundtracks. Say that 10 times fast. 1, The Wrath of Khan. 2, The Undiscovered Country. 3, The Voyage Home. 4, Star Trek Beyond. 5, Nemesis. I find the motion picture has some great tracks, but it's overall lacking. Listen, I'm just going to be straight up with you. There's a lot of... I don't pay attention a lot to soundtracks. I mean, there's some movies where the score is just so overwhelming that I can't help but notice, but sometimes the best soundtracks are the soundtracks that just blend you and immerse you in the movie that you don't even notice them. Great soundtracks are sometimes like great visual effects. A lot of times the best visual effects are the ones you don't notice, right? Sometimes the best visual effects are the ones you don't notice. Sometimes the best scores are the ones you don't even notice because they just immerse you so much into what's going on the screen that you don't really pay attention. And I'm one of these guys who I kind of, it washes, the music becomes a part of the scene for me and I quite often don't recognize it, which is really too bad. I mean, big themes, yes, but most of the score that just runs through the movie, it often flies and washes right over me because they do such a good job of it. So anyway, thanks for sharing that list with us, Darklock. I appreciate that. It's too bad Rob's not here. He would have gotten, I'm sure he would have had something to contribute about ranking the soundtracks for Star Trek movies. I'm sure he would have had something to contribute to that. All right, next up. Trent writes, you think we'll get football this fall? I do. I don't think it's a guarantee. I wouldn't put money on it, but yes, I do think we're going to get football. I think it's 50-50. That's the thing. Baseball just started up, so baseball just started. We will see how far they get there. Football is very important to the economy and people, especially where I live. College football is so huge. We may have to live without it. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with college football. That I don't know. Because now you're not talking about pro athletes who make tens of millions of dollars. You're talking about kids. You're talking about students. I don't know. I feel very good that we're going to get NFL. Again, I'm not willing to put money on that. But I feel pretty good that we're going to get NFL football. I mean, UFC's up and running. We're about to get the NBA back. Baseball has launched. So I think all signs look good that we're going to get football. Again, I wouldn't put money on it, but I'm guessing we're going to get it. But that's NFL. College becomes a different thing. And I just don't know. In the same way that I am guessing we're going to get NFL, I'm going to guess we won't get college football. But again, I wouldn't put money on that prediction. I don't feel strongly about that. That's my guess. But man, I want my sports to come back. And real sports, not baseball. Ooh, I just bothered a lot of people. Poppin' Taco writes, I come with peace and love, and I only write this because I love the band The Magnetic Fields. They, Stephen Merritt, wrote and recorded Book of Love. Oh, that's actually one of my favorite songs. In the late 1990s, I listened to Peter's version, and I have to say I like that version a lot. I never knew Peter didn't wrote that song. Peter Gabriel is who we're talking about. Book of Love by Peter Gabriel. I didn't realize it's a remake. I did not know that. I never knew that. But Peter Gabriel's version of Book of Love, I'll start calling it that, the version that Peter Gabriel does, it's one of my all-time favorite song recordings. It was played during the series finale, or at least what they thought was going to be the series finale of Scrubs, which was perfect. It's one of the best endings to a TV show ever. That montage they do of him looking into the future, seeing his future play out with the song Book of Love playing in the background. Beautiful, beautiful ending to a series. One of the best ever. But the other big significant thing Book of Love was played at was my wedding. Ann and I, that was our wedding song. We played Book of Love. And we first heard it at a Peter Gabriel concert at the Hollywood Bowl, because he wasn't doing a traditional concert. It was Peter Gabriel without his band. He was doing it with an orchestra. He did a full concert with an orchestra because he did a full album with an orchestra, and that's where Book of Love came from, as far as Peter Gabriel's part of it. But I never knew it came from something else. I learned something new every day. Thank you so much for that, Poppin' Taco. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, even as virus numbers improve, isn't it also likely no studio wants to be the first penguin in the water? You go first, no, after you. Maybe they should draw straws. Well, I mean, some actually want to be the first ones out there. Like Warner Brothers with Tenet, and especially Christopher Nolan, they kind of wanted to be the first movie to come out. Because they wanted to look like the knight in shining armor saving the film industry, right? I believe there will be other studios that want to play it more cautious. I want to say, hey, let one or two of the other studios come out with their movies first. Let's let them be the movies to try to get people back into theaters. Then once everything feels normal again, then we'll come in with our movies. So you're right. There are going to be those, but I think other studios, like I think a Warner Brothers does want to kind of be the leading the way. I think they want to be the ones leading the charge to bring back the movie theaters. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, Chris Warden writes, I was just going over the career of Patrick Swayze. What a career he had. And just realized he was the star and two of the most beloved chick flicks of all time in Ghost and Dirty Dancing, as well as two of the best guy flicks of all time in Roadhouse and Point Break. Roadhouse is so good. Point Break, there would be no Fast and the Furious if it wasn't for Point Break, because the first Fast and Furious movie is just a blatant plot point by plot point ripoff of Point Break. Point Break with Patrick Swayze as Bodie and Keanu Reeves as Johnny Utah. That movie is so good. That Point Break movie is so good. I love that movie. And Roadhouse. What can you say about Roadhouse? Be nice until it's time to not be nice. Roadhouse, Sam Elliott in there with Patrick. Oh, Roadhouse. Now listen, I know Dirty Dancing is beloved by many, and I know Ghost is beloved by many. And I'm not taking away from those. Those just weren't really my kinds of films. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate Dirty Dancing and I appreciate Ghost. I do. But Roadhouse and Point Break are more my wheelhouse. So when I think of Patrick Swayze, I think of Roadhouse and I think of Point Break. And maybe this is fair or unfair, but the next thing my mind goes to when I think of Patrick Swayze is the Chippendales sketch from Saturday Night Live that he did with Chris Farley. That is one of the most laugh out loud hilarious sketches Saturday Night Live ever did. It's got to be top 7 of the funniest, best sketches they ever did. If you guys have not seen the Chippendales audition sketch with Patrick Swayze, you must go onto YouTube and look it up. It's fantastic. It's so good. So when I think of Patrick Swayze, I think of that before I think of Dirty Dancing or Ghost. Maybe that's fair. Maybe that's unfair. But you gotta go and watch that. You gotta go and watch that sketch. It's hilarious. All right. Chris Warden also writes, also, what are your picks for the 3 main fights in the UFC tonight? I'm taking Whitaker, Shogun, and Gustafsson. That stuff. Let me bring up the card here. I do absolutely take Whitaker. I think Whitaker is going to be an entertaining fight, but I don't think he's going to have a big problem beating Till. Hold on a second. I don't think he's going to have a major problem beating Till. Listen, I said this on the show the other day. Till is an absolute savage when it comes to power. I mean, he hits like every opponent who's ever fought him. Let me just, where's the card? Hold on a second here. I want to bring up the full card. Here we go. He hits like a sledgehammer, man. He hits like an absolute sledgehammer. And so if Till can land on Whitaker clean, it could change everything. But Whitaker, he's a beast, man. I said this on the show before. I'll say it again. If it's the same Robert Whitaker that we know and love, he won't have a terribly difficult time beating Till, I don't think. But sometimes great champions aren't the same after taking a big loss. So we'll see what Robert Whitaker shows up. When you're talking about the Rua fight and against Nogueira, these are both 2 guys who are both well beyond their prime. So I honestly don't know. To me, that's a pick'em. I think Mauricio is going to go in. I mean, Mauricio is still ranked. I think he's going to go in as the favorite, clearly. But I honestly wouldn't put money on. To me, that one's a coin toss. Verdum is another guy. Because, listen, before he lost his title, he looked real. I mean, he was the first guy to really get a signature win off of Fedor, over Fedor. And ever since he beat Fedor, he looked remarkable. All the way up to taking, winning the UFC heavyweight title. But he hasn't looked the same since. Gustafsson has always looked great, but I mean, he retired and then he came back in. I mean, until John Bones Jones' most recent fight, which he lost, by the way. I don't know what the judges were looking at, but John Bones Jones lost that last fight. We should have a different light heavyweight champion right now. And now John Bones Jones is doing everything he can to duck a rematch with that guy. Anyway, but before that, the best fight John Bones Jones ever had was against Gustafsson. And Gustafsson has given everybody a run for money. He even gave Daniel Cormier a big run for his money. And even Daniel Cormier said after his fight with Gustafsson, that I didn't know that dude pushed me to my limit. He's so good. So I'm going to go with you. I mean, I don't think Fabricio Verdum is the same guy we've seen before. Therefore, I'll give it to Gustafsson. And then the resurging Carla Esparza, who was the champion until she ran into Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who destroyed her. But she's been resurging lately, and I'm going to look for her in that one. So those are my picks for tonight. I'm like 11-0 in my last 11 picks. I went perfect on the last UFC, and I was perfect on the one before that. Let's see if I can keep my streak going. Let's see if we can keep my streak going. I don't know. This one's a little bit closer, though. All right, Luke Reichelt writes, No question. Just thanks for the years of shows, John. You rock. Oh, dude, thank you so much, man. You sent in a $20 tip. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And it's always nice when somebody just wants to send something just to say something nice. So I appreciate that, Luke, very, very much. Thanks for being here and being a part of our community. And thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. I really appreciate that. All right, next up, Donkey Johnson writes, over the years, there's been talk about a reinvention of Shrek. With recent fan adaptations of Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life, could you see them going in a direction where they make a Shrek film in the style of Sausage Party or Austin Powers humor-wise? Nah. Nope. There's just too much money to be made with Shrek as a family-friendly property. Shrek is just too valuable of an IP. It's just way too valuable of an IP for them to do anything outside of using him in a family-friendly way. And listen, there have been whispers coming out of the studio halls of them revisiting and coming back to Shrek. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I haven't loved every Shrek film, but I think Shrek and, you know, Eddie Murphy is Donkey, get Mike Myers in their Shrek. I mean, it kind of, there's something really beautiful about it. So, listen, anything is possible. Anything is possible. My guess is the value of that Shrek character as a family friend, I just think it's too valuable. I don't think they mess with it that way. I don't think they do it. Could be wrong. Totally could be wrong, but I don't see them going in that direction. All right, Julius A. Goodwin writes, I'm pretty sure you're caught up on Doom Patrol by now. I haven't seen the latest episode. The last one I saw was when they went to the moon. And I think one more has come out since then, and I have not seen that. So do you now understand why I want a Stone and Steel show now? Oh, dude, listen, yeah, that came a couple of episodes ago. The Stone and Steel one was a couple. Oh, dude, screw the Avengers, screw Justice League. I want a Stone and Steel movie. That, I heard some people, because I was like a day behind watching that episode of Doom Patrol. So a bunch of people wrote into the show the day after that episode, and I hadn't seen it yet. And a whole bunch of people wrote in and said, man, they need to make a Stone and Steel movie. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Oh, that's what you were talking about. If you don't watch Doom Patrol, you have no idea what we're talking about. But I absolutely want to see that movie, Julius. And yes, now I see what you guys were raving about. I totally do. I would watch that movie in a heartbeat. I would totally watch that movie in a heartbeat. All right. R. Lee writes, I know the Academy already postponed the 2021 Oscars up until April. But with theaters still closed and release dates keep getting pushed back, what's the tipping point for them to consider canceling this year? If now is too early, when do the red flags go up? Yeah, listen, that is becoming a topic that has to be addressed. Now, look, I think if they can start getting movies back into theaters in September, like, look, let's say we talked about New Mutants off the top of the show. If they're able to do with New Mutants what I think they're going to do with New Mutants, and say and they start opening films back up in September, it is possible they could keep that April release date and just have a very unique Oscars that year that forever in history is going to have to have a little bit of an asterisk beside it. And that was a shortened year, you know, not as many films eligible that year, for obvious reasons, blah, 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 but I think they do it. We move past September and we actually do get into October and heaven forbid November. Then I think the Oscars are going to have to do the unthinkable and say, you know what? We're canceling the Oscars. There's not going to be a 2021 Oscar ceremony. They're just going to have to do it. And then make a special provision that any films that did come out that would have qualified for the 2021 Oscars now get an exemption and are automatically allowed to be eligible for the 2022 Oscars. And then, of course, you'll have to put an asterisk beside the 2022 Oscars saying, hey, we had to get kind of cram 1.5 years worth of movies into this one, but that's fine. Yeah, I think if we get into October, November, I think the Oscars are just going to have to pull the plug on the year. There's just no point. If we don't get original movies back into theaters until like November, December, well, then what's the point of having an Oscars to celebrate the 20 eligible films? You know what I mean? And you know me, Oscars are my second favorite day of the year, other than Christmas. Christmas is my favorite day of the year. Oscars is my second favorite day of the year. I don't want them to do it, but I think they're going to have to if we go that far. All right, good question, Arlie. Next up, Colby Harris writes, Darth Maul was voiced by Sam Witwer in the Clone Wars, and in he also did his voice in Solo as well. Rebels and Solo. They could always just have him play him. He would love to do it anyways. They could. He can't do what Ray Park can do, though. Now, I love Sam. I'm a big fan of Sam's, of Sam Witwer, who I beat in Star Wars trivia twice. Just wanted to point that out. I beat Sam Witwer in Star Wars trivia twice. I always got to bring that up. But I love the dude. I think, honestly, I'm a big fan of Sam's. I am a big fan. I love his work, even when he's in a show I don't like. Like, I don't like Supergirl, but I watched episodes because he was in it. I'm a big fan of his. He's great. That said, he cannot physically do what Ray Park can physically do, right? Ray Park never did the voice speaking, but you had Ray Park in there because he is a fantastic camera action guy. He can do all the stuff. I think if you do want to have Darth Maul, then you put a person under the makeup who can do the things Ray Park can do. And unfortunately, as big of a fan as I am of Sam Witwer, Sam is not that guy. Sam's not that guy. Very, very few people are that guy. But you absolutely continue to use Sam Witwer's voice. Yeah. Of that, I no argument for me. If you do anything more with Darth Maul moving forward, you continue to use Sam Witwer to do the voice. No doubt. Now, if you're going to have Darth Maul and stuff and he's never going to do any action, okay, then put Sam. But if you want him to do Darth Maul things, then you got to have, you need to have a pure martial artist in there to do that and then have Sam do the voice. But anyway, that's just kind of my thought on that. All right. James Welsh writes, I think you probably meant I saw the trailer for Megan Fox's new film Rogue, and it looks terrible. I don't even think the word terrible does it justice. I remember when she first came to prominence with Transformers and the press dubbing her the next Angelina Jolie. She did not become the next Angelina Jolie, and most of her post-Transformers work has sucked. Is she just someone who was given a big role because they had a pretty face? I don't mean to sound horrible, but why else would they have hired her for Transformers? Well, listen. Megan Fox, I don't know anybody that ever dubbed her the next Angelina Jolie. I never heard anybody say that. It's not like her performance in the Transformers movies were like awe-inspiring. Wow, what a revelation this Megan Fox girl is. Other than the fact that she is like male or female, one of the most beautiful creatures to walk the face of the earth, whatever gender. But she's not a tremendous actress. That said, she got a recurring role on New Girl, playing Nick's girlfriend. And I can't remember how many, but she was in a bunch of it. She had this recurring role on New Girl, and I thought she was quite good. It was the first time for me that I watched Megan Fox, other than, oh my God, she's so hot, and gone, you know what? I think she's owning this role. I like this character. I like what she's doing this character. So I think Megan Fox has probably, over the years, as you would expect and hope, has gotten better. I think she's gotten better. That said, if you guys have not seen the trailer for Rogue, oh my God, it looks like a special kind of awful. Like a very special kind of awful. Horrendously bad. And that's the trailer. The thing that's supposed to make your movie look good. The trailer is atrocious. Oh my God, it looks so awful. And listen, some people may laugh and snicker at me, but I do not write off Megan Fox's career. I think she's got more in her. Yes, even if she's in a terrible, terrible movie like this one, it does look awful. I'm telling you what, I don't think we've seen the last of Megan Fox. I think she has improved. I think she's gotten better, and I'm going to be curious to see how that continues to evolve if she gets more opportunities, and that's a big if. But if she gets more opportunities, I don't think her career is done, and I think we're going to be more impressed with her later than we were with her earlier stuff. Not that her earlier stuff was a very high bar, but I'm down for it. Anyway, let's see. Where are we at here? Now, Epstein didn't kill himself writes, hey, John, I don't know if you've covered this before, but I just finished season 1 of Black, and it was one of the better shows I've seen in quite some time, though I did have to watch a couple of recap videos on YouTube afterwards to make sure I've never even heard of the show. I'll be straight up. I've never even heard of the show. Hold on a second. I'm looking it up on IMDb and I'm not seeing it anywhere. So sorry about that, Epstein. I apologize. But I can't comment because I don't know what show it is we're even talking about. Sorry about that, dude. All right. Let's see. Campea fan writes, I've never watched Independence Day 2. Count yourself fortunate. I heard it's awful. It is. But I always wonder, why did they cast Micah Monroe instead of Mae Whitman to play the president's daughter? From what I read, the original actress was available and wanted to be part of the sequel. No idea. I'll tell you this. I don't know if she wasn't a good actress anymore or whatever. I can tell you this. It wouldn't have made the movie any better. It would not have made the movie any better. So it's a moot point on that level. But, you know, it could have been a million things. They didn't think that girl could act. Maybe she wasn't available. Who knows? But for whatever reason, they went with a casting change. But it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. No casting. You could have had Daniel Day-Lewis and Meryl Streep in that movie, and it wouldn't have made one lick of difference. And that was one of those movies. Independence Day 2 was one of those movies. I remember Schnepp was with me on this. Where everybody said, this is going to suck, this is going to suck. And and Schnepp as well, we were like, you know what? I think these trailers look good, and I'll bet you this movie's going to be a lot of fun. So me and my AMC crew, we had about 8 of us together because we were going to go watch Independence Day 2, and then we're going to go right into our studio and do an immediate video of us reviewing Independence Day 2 coming right out of the theater. Well, we came out of the theater and we were like, there's no way in hell or I'm going to waste my time talking about this. It was so bad. And that casting change wasn't going to save it. You could have put Meryl Streep in that role, wasn't going to save it. That movie was so bad. And I thought it was going to be so good. and it did not end up being that way. All right. Epstein writes in, sorry, John, the earlier comment I referenced the show Black was a rather good French television show on Netflix, but the show I just finished was season 1 of Dark. Okay, Dark. I'm about halfway through season 2, and the new season just dropped. All right, yeah, Dark, yes. Listen, that has come up a lot on this show. Everybody keeps recommending that I watch Dark. I have not seen a single episode of it yet, not a one. But Ann and I have decided we're going to start watching that together. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, we're going to jump on it. Because, yeah, I guess season 3, the final season just dropped. Somebody was just recommending it earlier. I'm telling you what, I think every show I've done this week, actually, I've lost count how many times people have recommended Dark. I've heard nothing but great things about it. People are very, very excited about it. And hopefully sooner rather than later, I'm going to have a chance to get around to start watching it myself. So yes, going to watch it soon. Now I know what you're talking about. Thank you for following up on that, Epstein, because I was a little bit Dark. I can't even find anything listed on IMDb. What is Dark? Now I know what you're talking about. All right, thanks for that, man. All right, next up, Mike Thompson writes, to think that New Mutants, the movie that was shot 75 years ago and had its release date bumped 244 times, could be the flick that saves the film and theater industries. I know, it's hilarious. It's like, what if? Like, if you believe in destiny and you believe that everything happens for a reason, what if New Mutants had to go through all the turmoil and all the delays and all the release date bumps? What if there was a higher plan that the cosmos and universe and whatever deities you worship knew that New Mutants was the movie that was going to bring back the movie theater industry. And it needed to be the first movie to come out on August 28th of 2020. What if it ends up being that? I'm not saying I believe any of that, but wouldn't it be hilarious if this movie that had so many delays and so many release dates and so many bumps actually ends up being that first movie out in theaters that made everybody go, wow. I mean, who knows? Stranger things have happened, but wouldn't it be? It'd be one of the great Hollywood folk tales of all time. If that were to work out that way, Mike. All right. Final question of the day also comes to us from Mike, who writes, over under 40%, that whenever Wonder Woman gets released, it can still make the same amount of money or more that it had it kept its original release date of November 2020 or of November 2019. You know, it's one of those questions, Mike, that we'll never actually know the answer, because we'll never factually know how much it would have made in November of 2019 or its next release date prior to getting bumped. We'll never know because we'll never have those factual answers. So my guess is that under 40%. I think ultimately, if it had come out when it was originally supposed to come out, or even then when it was supposed to come out after its first date bump, I personally feel it would have made more money. When Wonder Woman 84 does eventually come out, it's going to be facing the problem that it's been delayed. A lot of people are going to be waiting. That movie hadn't even come out yet. But on top of that, it's still going to be in an industry that is still trying to recover whenever Wonder Woman 84 comes out. Whether it comes out in December or January or February, the industry is still going to be in a place of recovering. The recovery is going to take a year or more, like once the theaters do open back up again fully. And therefore, I don't think it will. It can still do very good business. It can still make them money. But I would take under 40% that it could make as much as it would have if it had kept one of its original release dates. That's just kind of my thoughts on that. You guys may have a different opinion, but the ultimate answer is we'll never actually truly know what the actual answer is. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you guys so much for making this show a part of your weekend, and a special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel while you did it. Don't forget the John Campea Show with me and Robert returns on Monday. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, guys. Make sure you go over there, click the subscribe button, click the thumbs up button on this thing as well, and we will, of course, see you guys again on Monday. May you guys have a marvelous weekend ahead of you guys. I hope you have a great time, either enjoying yourself or just relaxing, getting some chores done, whatever it is you need to do. I hope this weekend can be that for you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.